Today is Thursday, January 11th. We'll tell you what happened in the latest GOP presidential debate, including which candidates were not there and why, as we're now just days away from the first voting contest in the 2024 election season. Plus, an easier and cheaper way to invest in Bitcoin that just got the government's approval. A decision that marks the end of an era in college football. And an iconic comedian touches on life in 2024, even though he died over 15 years ago. Those stories and even more news next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. We are now just 4 days away from the first voting contest of the 2024 election season. So, of course, the Republican presidential candidates are still trying to convince undecided voters in Iowa and also New Hampshire that will hold its primary 8 days later. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis were the only two GOP candidates who qualified for CNN's debate last night and were willing to show up. And they tore into each other. In his very first chance to speak, DeSantis called Haley a mealy-mouthed politician. He also said she was perhaps even more liberal than California Governor Gavin Newsom, who's known for more progressive policies. Haley hit back, calling DeSantis a serial liar, and she encouraged people to go to a website her campaign made to catalog what she said were the governor's falsehoods. As for the actual issues, on immigration, they both spoke about finishing a border wall. On taxes, Haley said she wanted to extend Trump-era tax cuts for small businesses and get rid of a federal gas tax. DeSantis spoke about instituting a flat income tax, meaning everyone pays the same percentage of their paycheck toward taxes, no matter what they make. They also both spoke about wars overseas, abortion in the U.S., fossil fuels, and a lot more. All that said, DeSantis and Haley really seem to be battling for a distant second place to former President Trump, who is still dominating the GOP polls. Trump still says he has no reason to participate in the debates, so last night he made an appearance on Fox News instead, and also touched on some key issues, like he promised the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. He once again promised to overturn Obamacare. And in another key moment, the former president said he knows who his running mate will be, but would not announce his pick just yet. Another Republican who was not on the debate stage last night, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. He decided to drop out of the GOP presidential race yesterday, saying he could not see a path to winning the nomination. Christie also took a parting shot at former President Trump, saying, quote, "I am going to make sure that in no way do I enable Donald Trump to ever be president of the United States again." But it doesn't seem like he has faith in the other top Republican options either. He hasn't endorsed anyone. And Christie was apparently caught on a hot mic when a conversation he had ended up on his campaign's live stream channel. In it, you can hear him say Haley is, quote, "gonna get smoked," and he called DeSantis petrified. The audio was eventually cut and then removed from YouTube. House Republicans have formally started the process of impeaching the Homeland Security Secretary. They held their first impeachment hearing against Alejandro Mayorkas this week. GOP lawmakers accused him of purposely failing to enforce the full power of immigration laws at the U.S.-Mexico border. They say that's directly led to a surge in migration and drug trafficking. They even brought on top law enforcement officials from Montana, Missouri, and Oklahoma to talk about the impact the situation at the border is having on their states. Though Democrats say the whole idea of impeaching Mayorkas is political. They brought on a constitutional expert who said he has not found any indication that Mayorkas committed an impeachable offense. Mayorkas himself was not there, and many Republican senators say even if Mayorkas does get impeached in the House, they're unlikely to hold a trial in the Senate. Even so, an impeachment would be historic. He'd be only the second cabinet official to ever be impeached, and the first in almost 150 years. A new report says the IRS is still struggling despite a massive boost to funding recently. The annual report comes from the Office of the National Taxpayer Advocate, which is an independent watchdog within the agency. It essentially says the IRS is still too slow processing amended tax returns, answering phone calls, and dealing with identity theft cases. For example, even though the IRS has claimed it answers 85% of calls received, this report found employees are only actually answering about 35%. But the report also found some positives, saying things did improve a lot from the 2022 filing season to last year's filing season, and that the agency took an all-hands-on-deck approach in 2023. The IRS told The Hill it continues to hire staff, improve technology, and more, and that taxpayers can expect things to get even better in 2024, made possible by that additional funding. Although, keep in mind, that funding boost is under threat. The latest spending agreement being floated in Congress would claw back about $20 billion of the $80 billion promised over the next decade. But nothing is finalized just yet. For the first time, U.S. regulators decided to let mainstream investors invest in Bitcoin just as easily as stocks and mutual funds. It's a watershed for the world's largest cryptocurrency and the crypto industry as a whole. It creates Bitcoin exchange-traded funds, better known as ETFs, to track Bitcoin. The big thing here is they can be traded through regular brokerage accounts. Already, more than a dozen companies have been approved, like Fidelity, BlackRock, Grayscale, and so on. And more are expected to jump on Bitcoin ETFs in the next few weeks. Business Insider says investing in Bitcoin through an ETF is now the simplest, least risky way to get into the crypto market. Basically, it offers investors exposure to Bitcoin without directly holding it. That said, the SEC chair made it clear the agency is not endorsing Bitcoin since it's expected to stay volatile. Though for now, Bitcoin is up. It's actually soared more than 70% in recent months in anticipation of this decision. Trading can begin as soon as today. More news is still ahead, but first, this podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This new year, I hope you let go of being a completely new you, if that doesn't work for you, and instead focus on what's going right in your life already. Give yourself some credit. Being kind to yourself, feeling grateful, and finding your strengths are just a few of the things that therapy can help you do. And I can tell you from experience that usually a side effect of those is that you become even more of the best version of yourself. Therapy has helped me figure out what is and isn't working in my life so I can set myself up for more good without any extreme resolutions. If you're thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is an online-only option that is convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Now back to the news. Millions of Americans could be in for especially frigid weather starting today. Forecasters say temperatures could drop to record lows for this time of year from Montana all the way to the Gulf Coast. But the cold front is coming in waves. The first plunge of cold air is expected to move from the northern Rockies into the central plains today. After that, an even stronger cold blast could bring sub-zero temperatures from the northwest to the southern plains and Midwest this weekend. And it could reach the southeast early next week, bringing even the deep south single-digit lows. But before the cold comes more storms tonight. Snow and gusty wind are expected from parts of Kansas and Nebraska into the Midwest. And in the south, parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi could get severe hail, strong winds, and tornadoes. Already, extreme winter weather has caused a lot of damage this week. Sadly, at least one person died and others were hurt at a popular California ski resort yesterday when an avalanche tore through a section of trails near Lake Tahoe. And meteorologists say dangerous avalanche conditions could continue on the West Coast today. YouTube says it's making it easier to help people find life-saving information in an emergency. It launched what it calls First Aid Information Shelves. The new shelves appear when you search for topics like choking, bleeding, heart attack, stroke, seizure, or opioid overdose. They include videos from credible health organizations that are specifically meant to be easy to follow. Though it's important to remember, the Red Cross says anytime you are in an emergency situation, call 911 first. Then you can start performing basic first aid, which can make a big difference in that critical time before medical help arrives. YouTube can now help with that part. Or, of course, you can prepare yourself for the worst-case scenario ahead of time. YouTube also partnered with the American Heart Association on a free CPR course. This week, a new comedy special came out from stand-up legend George Carlin. It features opinions on all kinds of controversial topics of today, like former President Trump, Elon Musk, transgender Americans, gun rights, social media, reality TV, and a lot more. But here's the thing. Carlin died more than 15 years ago. The special, called I'm Glad I'm Dead, was generated by artificial intelligence. It apparently analyzed all of Carlin's old material to mimic Carlin's style, everything from his voice to his cadence to his attitude. There's a disclaimer off the top that explains it's just an impersonation, but it's still pretty lifelike, and his family apparently did not give permission. Carlin's daughter said, quote, "My dad spent a lifetime perfecting his craft from his very human life, brain, and imagination. No machine will ever replace his genius." She suggested people listen to living comedians instead, or one of the 14 specials her father did when he was actually alive. A coach who's widely considered to be the greatest in all of college football history has decided to step away from the game. University of Alabama's Nick Saban is retiring. During his career, he won 7 national championships, 6 of those with the Crimson Tide, turning Alabama back into a national powerhouse. He coached 4 Heisman Trophy winners, more than anyone else, and he churned out 44 first-round NFL draft picks while winning nearly 300 games. Though in his statement yesterday, Saban said, quote, "It's not just about how many games we won and lost, but it's about the legacy and how we went about it. We always tried to do it the right way." And the tributes have been rolling in. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Thing to Know Thursday. But first, a break for our sponsor. Anyone else hate that question, what's for dinner, when no one has the answer? Well, Green Chef might change your life in 2024. You can say goodbye to the fridge and freezer scavenger hunts or last-minute grocery runs or unhealthy takeout because Green Chef sends you everything you need for chef-crafted, nutritionist-approved recipes packed with clean ingredients that not only fill you up but also support a healthy lifestyle. I mean, just the other night, my family enjoyed Southwest steak salad with roasted potatoes, cotija cheese, avocado crema, and pepitas. My husband actually made this one on his own and said it was really simple, yet the end result was so impressive and delicious and healthy. The whole family loved it, and I could feel great about us eating it. Green Chef even has a new gut and brain health meal plan that are nutrient-dense and science-backed. In fact, Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so it has a wider array of meal plans to choose from, and there is something for everyone. So go to greenchef.com/60newsworthy, and you can use the code 60newsworthy to get 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. Again, that's 60% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you go to greenchef.com/60newsworthy and use that code 60newsworthy. Green Chef, the #1 meal kit for eating well. Okay, now back to Thing to Know Thursday. So there's now more evidence that plastics are widespread in American food, despite potential health risks. The nonprofit advocacy group Consumer Reports tested 85 supermarket staples and fast foods, including dairy products, meat and seafood, fruits and vegetables, baby food, and prepared meals. And they found 99% of them contained phthalates, which are chemicals added to plastic to make it more flexible. Plus, nearly 80% of samples contained BPA, which can also be found in plastic. And it didn't matter if the products were organic or what they were packaged in. The chemicals apparently get into food a lot of different ways. For example, from plastic tubing, conveyor belts, and gloves used in food processing. So many food producers say it's just inevitable. But the chemicals have been linked to various health risks, like diabetes and hormone disruption. That said, there's no clear consensus on how much of the chemicals you have to be exposed to for them to have a big impact. None of the levels found in the tested foods exceeded the federal limits that are deemed unsafe. But Consumer Reports scientists say any level of these chemicals in food can be dangerous. Just last year, the FDA rejected a petition that called for a total ban of these chemicals, saying it needs more information before changing these standards. Well, now Consumer Reports says it wants the FDA to reassess with the latest research in mind. All right, thank you so much for joining us and listening today. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.